My friends, I want to thank you for watching this video. If you like what you see, please click the subscribe button and click the notification bell. And if you think you're already subscribed, please check to make sure YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you without your permission. It happens every day. And if you really like what you see, please consider becoming a channel member or even leaving a super thanks donation to help keep us going. I promise to answer each and every one I receive. Thank you for watching, my friends, and now, on to the video. My friends, there's no two ways about it. Trouble is brewing for Disney from some 14,000 angry employees over Disney's alleged unfair labor practices when it comes to union members, and it's looking like it may cost them dearly. Fortunately, we have with us today someone intimately involved in the negotiations with Disney, which appear to be breaking down at this point, and he's willing to let us know what's going on, what's the likelihood this strike against Disney is going to happen, and what it could cost the Magic Kingdom. Greetings, Raphael. Welcome to the show.
Nice to be here.
So you've been a key player involved in some recent labor negotiations with Disney, a role you've played for your union before when your union actually won against Disney in arbitration. So you can confirm this is no rumor. It's entirely fact that coming up on the 19th, I believe, thousands of union Disney cast will hold an unfair labor strike vote for the first time in decades. What is at stake in this vote?
Yeah, so there's two contracts going right now. So the Disneyland contract is primarily the one that's going to be voting. The DCA one we'll probably vote a little later if things are still going bad. I'd say like 10,000 out of the 14,000 are going to be voting, somewhere around there. And it's basically an unfair labor practice strike vote to basically authorize any future vote as it comes. But yeah, for the most part, this vote is potentially gearing toward the first strike in decades for the Disneyland cast. As far as master services, which is it's comprised of about 4 unions. So there's SEIU, Teamsters, UFCW, Candy Makers. There's 4 different unions comprising of about 14,000 members across the Disneyland division and the Disney California Adventure division, both located in Anaheim.
And what are you asking for in this negotiation? What is it that you feel that Disney is not giving cast members that they should?
So it tends to boil down to the same few key topics, honestly. They're offering just really low wages right now when you compare it to other departments, and also particularly other non-union versus union departments. The company has no issue, and nothing against non-union departments. Everybody at the end of the day is trying to just get through at the parks right now, but they have very happily offered them a little more, and then when they came to the table, they were offering us probably it was either the lowest or the second lowest wage that would be in the park, and we were just asking for more. We're asking for recognition of the longevity of employees as well. They just don't seem to want to offer anything regarding long-term service. In fact, it was kind of a lot of people, based on the feedback from the cast members, felt it was kind of a slap in the face, because what they were offering initially was if you had worked there 20 years, you could have an additional quarter on top of the low raise that they were offering everybody. So 20 years.
When you say an additional quarter, you mean an additional 25 cents?
Yes. So they were offering initially, and then as things were falling apart, they were kind of patting themselves on the back for offering 50 cents at that point. So anybody who would work 20 years or more at that point was what was in the proposal on the table. And at that point, we were kind of telling them, look, it does appear you guys are taking this these concerns of the cast members, because that's one of the number one priorities that we were hearing during feedback, is a lot of long-term employees feel the company is not recognizing their long-term contribution, and they would like higher wages on top of that as a result. We've also had a lot of issues regarding the attendance policy. Disney, for instance, implemented last year one of the strictest attendance policies in like decades. It's probably, if not the strictest attendance policy, and it's resulted in a lot of people getting fired because it's so hard now to excuse if they have to call in sick, for instance. You have to be out in almost an entire week before you can even get a doctor's note to excuse it, for instance. And it's just resulting in a lot of people getting disciplined, a lot of people getting fired as well. So there were a lot of topics going to the table, but those were kind of the ones that we were hearing were the important ones. Adjustments to this attendance policy, the fact that they are paying low wages right now. Most of the wages are under $20. And to that point as well, Disney tried to take credit for Measure L, which was it was something Anaheim voters voted on to kind of increase wages initially in the past few years. But that was I think almost 4 or 5 years ago, and Disney fought it for half a decade. It went all the way to the California Supreme Court before the California Supreme Court basically told them, no, you lost in the appeals court, you need to pay your cast members another, I think at that point it was another $1 or so that was an increase. And then they actually tried to take credit for it in the negotiations by patting themselves on the back and saying, well, but we gave you guys a little initial boost before negotiation, so what's the problem? And we're like, no, the Anaheim voters gave the employees a boost, and you guys fought it in court for 5 years, and they still, to this day, actually, they still owe the employees retroactive back pay. They're disagreeing on the amount, and I believe it's having to go back to court again because they don't want to pay I think it's like tens of millions of dollars in retroactive back wages that they owe these employees for that. So there's just a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of hubris involved.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, how can Disney afford to waste, hundreds of millions of dollars on crap like The Acolyte if they don't stiff the cast members? I mean, come on. I mean, they can't do everything, Raphael. I mean, geez, how are they going to afford to flush money down the toilet on She-Hulk, if they give you guys that 50 cents extra an hour, even though the cost of living in California is outrageous and a lot of people are not knowing how they're going to meet rent, how they're going to buy food. I mean, it's a crazy situation, But you mentioned that, yeah, well, obviously. But, you mentioned that another meeting is scheduled with the Disney representatives to negotiate, but I understand that the latest rounds of discussions did not go well. And the Disney representatives left the meeting looking upset. What more can you tell us about their reaction to your demands at this point?
Yeah, so it's kind of devolved so much that we're not even in the same room right now. Where I saw their reaction was in the parking lot as we were all leaving, and I just happened to be out there, and their team was out there having an interaction. But more to that, we have a federal mediator, but it's kind of devolved, in my opinion, to the point where we're not even in the same room. Like we're telling the mediator, then the mediator is going to. It's almost like a bad divorce court proceeding, if you. Because he comes into the room, we talk to him, he leaves the room and he goes to a separate room and talks to them, and it's back and forth. And we might have an upfront conversation with a couple of our key negotiators if there's like a need for clarification or something. But otherwise, it's essentially become a waiting game and a bad divorce settlement proceeding, if you will. And it's almost as if the unions are trying to get something for the kids, and I don't want to lessen it to, but essentially we're the cast members are being represented here, and the company just doesn't feel like they want to pay their fair share at that point. So when I saw them leaving the parking lot, it was the first time I'd seen them all day, and that's where I was like, wow, they look completely different as they're getting in their cars, and they're having their conversations, and their head negotiator was not happy. There's someone that they actually fly in from Florida. They also do the Florida negotiations, is my understanding, and they just look kind of flustered, frustrated, not happy. A lot of the people that would occasionally pass them in the hallways throughout the day were saying, they were just not willing to talk to them at all. It was very cold shoulder, etc. So they're feeling it, and they're very upset. It's almost to the point where they feel insulted or like they're being angered by the fact that they're being asked to help out the cast members, unfortunately.
I guess Disney really isn't the happiest place on earth anymore, is it? It's really just not so great. If you work there, maybe if you visit there, it might have a little bit of happiness, but then, you know, you hit the Bibbidi Boutique and things go south. But I understand that Disney has been retaliating against union members for their involvement in this situation. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so very early on, it was a very simple campaign. It's not even very, it wasn't even very aggressive, in my opinion. I wouldn't say it was aggressive at all, in fact. The cast members, as part of the contract negotiation campaign, started wearing a button. And I do understand maybe the company felt a little triggered by the fact that it was just a very simple button of a Steamboat Willie making a power fist, or the labor power fist.
So you have put the Steamboat Willie public domain thing to excellent use.
Yes. And so that was it, though. It was just a little power fist. It didn't even have the wage amounts or anything like that. Just a very simple little cartoon button, and they started wearing it, and almost immediately, like, we kind of anticipated they might do something like this, because there are times where they just feel they're above the law, unfortunately, even when they shouldn't. I mean, we saw that full blown in Florida, and so we kind of suspected that might trickle over here, you know, where they felt they were above the law in certain aspects. And so, yeah, right away they started approaching cast members, and so it was kind of a very simple exchange at times, but with huge ramifications. And they were kind of creating a trap of their own making, because it is an unfair labor practice to discriminate or retaliate against someone wearing something as simple as a union campaign button or a union button, especially during contract negotiations. And yet they were going up to the cast members and saying, hey, you need to remove that button. It's not part of your costume and Disney look. And then they would just simply ask them, okay, well, are you going to essentially punish me? Are you going to give me a discipline, or is my job at risk if I don't take it out? And they were actually saying yes to them. They were actually telling them. We even had some accounts where they were just confiscating the buttons, when the reality was, I don't think, to my knowledge at least, I don't think there was a single exchange, or if there were so few that they haven't really reported them to us, where anybody actually challenged them. Most times it was a very peaceable exchange. There was no anonymity. A lot of the cast members just said, okay, I'll take the button off. And then they kept working, but they did report it. We had set up a system and a hotline just in case, because the unfortunate reality is we do know how this company reacts sometimes to not getting their way. And in that sense, they did not disappoint, even though it was very disappointing to have them cornering these cast members, telling them their job was at risk, telling them their performance evaluations were at risk, that they would be punished and retaliated against for wearing this very simple button. And I think part of it too was they were concerned that the guests were going to be asking questions about the button. And I think that's what their real concern was. The sad reality is I don't think they cared at all, given past exchanges with them. I don't think the executives really cared at all that they were threatening or intimidating the cast members. I think the bottom line was they didn't want it getting to a level where the guests were asking them, hey, well, what is that button about? And then, oh, it's for our union contract. You should look into it. You should look into more information, because legally they can also answer a question rather, if they're asked a question. It's you know, they're not going out of their way at that point. But again, the company just full on started threatening them. And we did have some actions where we actually gave out some of the buttons to the guests. We set up some booths outside the park, you know, of course, And as guests were going in, they were handed balloons for the union campaign. They were handed buttons with little explanations, about the campaign and how Disney's treating the workers. So it's just become a very adversarial situation for something so simple, unfortunately.
And just to be clear, it is illegal for Disney to be doing these things.
Yes, it's very well recognized, not just in California, but also I believe nationally through like the National Labor Relations Board cases, et cetera, that you're not supposed to, a company rather, let's say a company, but also rarely in other employees as well. But a company can't just discriminate against union employees for wearing a button or something along those lines. It's an unfair labor practice.
100%, and that's exactly what this unfair labor strike vote is about. I mean, at least partially. Yeah. So, given that things are not going so well and y'all are not even in the same room, how many people potentially could walk off the job during this strike, and how would that potentially impact Disney? What would it cost them?
Ooh, it's hard to do a cost evaluation, but it would be equivalent to what would initially happen. Again, don't quote me on that, because the first step is the vote, and then if that's authorized, then the Disneyland side would be able to take action when they want, and there might be a short vote, or not a short vote, a short strike. There could be a long strike. Sometimes it might just be like a day of, and then they come back. We're kind of keeping some of those details a little privy right now, but for the most part, it would be the equivalent of, say, all of the attractions cast members, or ideally, all of the potentially all of the attractions cast members, all of the custodial janitorial cast members, all of the store retail cast members, all of the candy makers, potentially just all walking out at the same time for Disneyland. It could be while it's operating. It could even be before it's operating. Maybe they get a notice a few hours before opening, and then just nobody shows up for that day. So it would be a huge impact. And then what they might try to do is maybe have some of their managers scramble to run the bit, but it's not going to happen in that sense, where they're not going to be able to do that. They're not going to be able to keep up if all of the employees do not show up. It's going to grind the park to a halt that day.
Oh my God, that would be a massive mess of chaos that the mouse could not fail to notice and feel acutely. So there's a lot at stake here, folks. Disney has alienated a lot of their workers. They are trying to bridge the gulf, but at this point, they are not even in the same room. There's going to be a vote on the 19th, and if it does not go Disney's way, well, this could be a very, very, very dark day for the mouse. Thank you, Raphael, aka Archer Merchant, for this interview, my friend. Greatly appreciated. Good luck with those negotiations, and keep us posted, my friend.
Absolutely. Thank you again for your time as well.
From the center of the earth, this is Victor Van Doomcock bidding you all, my friends, stay angry. Ha 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 ha